you for joining in our workshop, Kinanthropometry and Human Welfare. And I would like to request Professor P.R. Mondal to give the welcome address. I would just like to inform all of you that our head of the department, Professor M.P. Sachdeva, and the convener of this workshop could not join us due to some emergency. So I requested our very senior professor, Professor P.R. Mondal, to give the welcome address. And sir very kindly agreed to give the welcome address. Professor P.R. Mondal is a senior professor in our department, and sir specializes in biological anthropology. His area of interest are primatology, paleoanthropology, and molecular anthropology, forensic science. But his expertise does not just ends here. These are the few very important areas he is working on, and sir has guided many MPhil and PhD students. I welcome you, sir, for the welcome address. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sivani. Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. In the occasion of celebrating glorious 75 years of the Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi, and one day virtual international workshop is organized on kinanthropometry and human welfare, a better understanding of growth, exercise, performance, and nutrition. In fact, kinanthropometry is an extremely relevant topic in contemporary time, and it contributes greatly to human welfare through its various theoretical principles and techniques. I am hopeful that you would be enlightened a lot from this workshop. I would like to heartily welcome our chief guest, Professor S.L. Malik, who laid the foundation of the field of kinanthropometry and ergonomics in this department. He has contributed extensively in this field. I also like to welcome all eminent speakers who have virtually joined us here. I would also like to welcome all the participants who gave overwhelming response to our workshop and registered themselves. I hope you all will have a very nice, enriching learning experience. I thank you once again for joining us virtually. Have a nice day. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Now, before we proceed to the other events of the workshop, I would just like to say a few, like how it was conceived and what all will be learning from this workshop. So our department, University of Delhi, Department of Anthropology, takes extreme delight in hosting the international workshop on kinanthropometry and human welfare. The workshop was conceived keeping in mind the contemporary relevance of the field in human health. Kinanthropometry is extremely useful for human welfare as it studies human size, shape, proportion, composition, maturation, and gross function to understand growth, exercise, performance, and nutrition. It is a quantitative interaction between human structure and function. This discipline is closely allied with biological anthropology, physical education, sports science, medicine, oxology, pediatrics, human biology, gerontology, and ergonomics. Over the period of time, kinanthropometry has developed into an important tool in the hands of biological anthropologists for assessing the health of not only the general population, but also of the sports persons concerning their performance. It is important to have a comprehensive picture, the growth of individuals and their structural evolution, selection of talent, monitoring of training to yield a positive result. sports anthropology tends to employ a distinctive framework that addresses problems like gender in sports, peak performance in sport, ergonomics in sports, body composition, somatotype, proportionality, which plays a fundamental role. Physical fitness that forms an important component of kinanthropometric studies is a state of health and well-being, and more specifically, the ability to perform aspects of sports, occupation, and daily activities. It is generally achieved through proper nutrition, moderate, vigorous physical exercise, and sufficient rest. Evidence suggests the in life is of critical importance for sustainable physical fitness and health outcomes in the future. The workshop has tried to touch upon relevant topics of interest in kinanthropometry and how it is impacting our health through the wonderful talks to be delivered by our distinguished speakers from India and abroad. And it will begin with the inaugural address by our chief guest, Professor S.L. Malik. I hope this workshop provides a knowledge enhancing experience to our participants, students, teachers, and researchers who are actively working in the field of health and fitness. And now I would like to invite our in gracing the occasion by his inaugural address. Starts with his inaugural address. Let me quickly introduce our beloved Professor S.L. Malik to our audience. Most of you know him, but still I would like to say a few words on Sir. Professor S.L. Malik we never let him retire. Gorakhpur University. Prior to this, he also served University of Delhi. He has been recently declared as eminent social scientist by Indian Council Social Science Research, Indian Council of Social Science Research, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research and Department of awards and fellowships, including Emeritus Fellow, UGC, and Alexander von Humboldt Fellowship, Germany, at the University of Kiel. His area of interest in are research in research methods, human growth and development, physiological anthropology, human growth and development, ergonomics, kinanthropometry, etc. He has edited and published several books. He has published over 100 research articles in international, more than 30 and national journals of high repute. Along with this, he has investigated many scientific research projects funded and sponsored by DBT, UGC, and DU. In addition, no matter how much I say, it will always fall short of what Sir is. And I would like to welcome Sir without wasting any time. We would really want to listen to you. Thank you, Sir, so much for joining. Over to you, Sir.
Respected Professor Sajdeva, Professor Mandal, Dr. Shivani, faculty members, alumni, distinguished speakers, delegates, my dear students, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, good morning to you. I'm delighted that the department is celebrating the commencement of 75 glorious years, and the contribution of the department is so much that we can take pride of. I will start with my simple, I'll share first my thing. First of all, let me say that the department is celebrating 75th year, and the topic today, which has to be covered in the workshop, is kinanthropometry and human welfare. And I would be talking about expanding horizons of anthropometry and its applications. I'm using the word anthropometry for a particular purpose rather than kinanthropometry, and we'll come to that very soon. As Dr. Shivani has defined, so my task becomes that much simpler, but I'll give just few lines of what kinanthropometry is. It is defined as a study of human size, shape, proportion, composition, maturation, and gross function in order to understand growth, exercise, performance, and nutrition. This was a definition given by Ross and his colleagues. And it is a, as she has already mentioned, that it's a relationship between anatomy and movement. And so we can study the structure and functions. So in addition to the morphology, the functional aspects, I'll skip them because we also. So now what I'm saying here is that why I'm showing this picture to you. I'm telling, believe those who are seeking the truth, doubt those that have found it. So far, we have seen the definitions. All of us know, all of us share, and we think that this is the truth. This is the reality. And nothing is beyond that. I would try to give that knowledge never ends. Inquisitiveness should never end. The exploration should never end. And that is what anthropology has taught me. And today I'm going to share those thoughts with you. First question is kinanthropometry a part of anthropology or it is different? Answer, is kinanthropology a different subject altogether? I believe kinanthropometry is a very much a part of anthropometry. It covers, in addition to the static measurements, also the dynamic measurements. And the next question was stating that, does it include the measurement taken in static standard position? Yes, it does take also the cognizance of taking measurement in static position, not only in dynamic position. Does it include physiological variables? Yes, it does include physiological variables, because by definition also the Ross has talked about gross function. That means we are also including the physiological functions or physiological variables into this one. Is it a branch of study? Is it a method or a branch of study? Why I'm giving this points to ponder is that we know many things, many of the experts are sitting, so it's a very important point that today we discuss and debate on things, and we can learn from the experts who are gathered together to answer certain these are the school of thoughts which I'm presenting, or the points to ponder over and to be delineated and discussed during the conference. Is it a method or a branch of study? I'll just come to that one in a few slides. Does it cover all the application of anthropometry? My answer is no. We'll see how it is, yes or no. Should all the measurements, morphological, body composition, physiological, taken in static position, in motion, and recreation, work and recreation included under the ambit of anthropometry or kinanthropometry, or some other terms be used? I'll be talking about these things surely between during my topic. Let me talk about traditional anthropometry, which we knew when I was a student. It included somatometry, craniometry, osteometry, and other subjects as well. But some people later on thought somatometry and anthropometry are synonyms. Craniometry and osteometry are different. But we know today again that anthropometry, as the name suggests, anthropos and metry, the man and the measurements, can include somatometry, craniometry, osteometry, because it increases the applications as well. Then there was a subject called dynamic anthropometry and operational designing. This was a very well-known subject for some time, and it had all the name, dynamic anthropometry and operational designing. That was later replaced by ergonomics. So in our anthropology, when it started, it was named as dynamic anthropometry and operational designing. And later on, when the other branches of knowledge combined, it was called ergonomics in UK and other places, and human factors engineering in US. Then came a subject called kinanthropometry, which basically, as we have already defined, that it was relative to the movements and during work, and also included, other than the static movements, the work postures as well. Should it be called as morphophysiological biometry? Yes, this could be also one of the terms. But I'll go back when I conclude to certain other things in next few slides. Why I'm discussing all this is that other things everybody knows. So if we are holding a workshop, we should have something, for the experts to talk about, so that our students can be benefited. In traditional anthropometry, the measurements are taken in standard positions. Generally, there are standard standing positions, there is a standard sitting position, and we do not take the dynamic measurements in that one. With advancement of anthropometry, the skin folds, somatotypes, body compositions, these were added to anthropometry. Then came a subject in anthropometry, where in addition to all these static measurements, the measurements were taken in dynamic position, such as during motions, in various walk postures, and later on physiological measurements I also done in my high altitude studies, environmental studies, and different places. That physiology became an integral part of the acumen of anthropology. Now let me present why I'm saying that it is a branch of study or a method. I have divided that into three. The first one, anthropometry, kinanthropometry, three-dimensional anthropometry, somatotyping, body composition, proportion and disease. These are basically methods. And what do they measure? They can measure stature, weight, bicameral breadth, popliteal height, somatotype, cephalic index, body proportion, and so on. What are the subject of studies? Population, gender variation, body size and shape, composition, growth, nutrition, segmental growth, somatic growth, forensic anthropology, environment and adaptation studies, human growth, and these can be taken as human factors engineering or ergonomics, health, fitness, and profit. So I reserve my comments for this thing, that whether it should be called a branch of study or the method, because if we can consider that further, we can do that one. I am, after the various to ponder over, now I'm coming to a point where generally anthropometry is applied. I have used a color scheme as well. The first one, as in the traditional anthropometry, the people used to classify or categorize people according to population, gender, caste, class, and religion. And they examined variation, typing, and maturation. They also studied body composition, human origin, evolution, and paleoanthropology using anthropometry. Then came the subject of kinanthropometry, which is denoted by these two. The application of kinanthropometry found in growth and nutrition, stunning, and this thing, catch-up growth chart, sports and exercise, and physical fitness and performance. But some areas were not considered, like health and disease, which is a very important area where anthropometric contribution cannot be ignored. In forensic anthropology, again, the contribution of anthropometry is immense. It cannot be covered under kinanthropometry. Then our environmental and adaptational studies, these are again an area of study. and the final anthropometry and designing. I'm listing some of them. That means the anthropometry is used much more than otherwise. Some of these areas had some initial uh, information in traditional anthropometry as well. So now I have trying to redefine anthropometry in a different way than what people know of. And for example, I put anthropometry in the center and somatometry, craniometry, osteometry on one hand, and kinanthropometry, ergonomics, and physiological method measurements on this. Which term can be suitable to all of them? If we think that anthropometry it is, according to me, it is more inclusive than any other term. Because if we combine in anthropometry, other than somatometry, the craniometry and osteometry, we combine them with not only limit ourselves to morphology, but also combine that with physiology. Then all these subjects can be covered under the ambit of anthropometry more than anything, any other word. So accordingly, I stated the name of my deliberation as expanding horizons of anthropometry and its application. So we have seen that the application of anthropometry is in various parts, and also we have seen that the anthropometry encompasses all these disciplines, all these subsubjects much better than any other subjects. So therefore, I see the old is gold, and anthropometry is a very good word, because anthropos means human, metric means measurement. It can be morphological measurement, it can be physiological measurement, it can be static measurement, it can be dynamic measurements, and therefore one can say that anthropometry seems to, it can be in living beings, it can be in non-living beings, because in paleoanthropological studies, if you're doing, then craniometry and osteometry will be better. So it contributes to much more areas of anthropology than any other subjects. I leave it open to the whole workshop to debate and discuss all these points if they like. If their team fit, they can discuss and see how it works. Now, this thing, because time will be short, I'll have selected only one measurement, one part, and that is in ergonomics, application of anthropological acumen in designing devices. That means within ergonomics, I have also chosen only one part in garment designing and personal equipment. And what anthropologists do, they collect information about people, their size, their ability to handle information, make decisions, their ability to see, hear, and receive information, their ability to work in extreme conditions, heat, noise, vibration, their limitation, their variation in sex, age, and social culture and ethnic characteristics. Ergonomists use this information about human variation to design devices, workspace, clothing, and personal equipment. They also ensure that the technology adapts to the capabilities and limitations of the people for the benefit of optimum system. Performance, creating a safe, comfortable, and efficient environment. There are three basic objectives of ergonomics, that is comfort, safety, and efficiency. Efficiency means that you have less input and give more output. It's a simple efficiency is taken a common word. Safety is the next important point, that it should not control accidents and ill effects, but also short-term and long-term ill effects. Comfort is that it should not do undue fatigue to people, and therefore all these things, three things, when achieved, we can say the objective of ergonomics is achieved. Efficiency does not solely depend on the quality of machines, but also on the work environment in general and man-machine in particular. Both short-term and long-term safety measures have to be ensured to develop an optimal man-machine relationship. Comfort not only means absence of undue fatigue, stress, or uneasiness, but a sense of good feeling. There are three classes of people which are important if we want to make a good design. They are users, ergonomist, and engineer. I'm calling that engineer. You can call them by the manufacturer, engineer, or whosoever makes that ultimately the designer, you can call whatever. These three are important. There is an interaction between the classes, ergonomist and user interaction. Ergonomist role is to provide information to the users to help them differentiate between a good and a bad design. Tell very categorically to the users that this is a good design and that bad design. What is the user should do? They, once convinced, should emphasize on the purchase and use of only good design things and products. And similarly, there is an interaction between ergonomists who have to provide to the manufacturer with relevant data on variation in simpler form for immediate use. Manufacturer engineering role is to develop well-designed products considering human variability. There are three main categories which the designs are based on. One is clothing and personal equipment design. I'll be taking only one example from this personal equipment design. And the second is workspace design, design of components and design. What these three areas cover generally, that will come in this thing. Clothing and personal equipment design includes designing of garments, helmets, gloves, pressure suits, shoes, etc. There may be many more. What is the aim of this thing? To ensure proper fit, minimize restriction of movement, define range of sizes, and prevent over-oblique understock. Examples are helmet, shoes, garments, and measurements required. Some of the measurements that are required are circumferences, body contours, volumes, limb movements, and etc. These things are required. For the workspace design, similarly, it is designing of any space during work, recreation, travel, education, etc. So work is not merely work. It can be recreation, it can be travel, it can be education. Aims at proper location of controls and devices. I can share with you that my humble fellowship was on this thing that was designing of car seats, and that also was showing where the proper location of controls and devices are there, and how the car should be designed, and how the controls in a car can be placed so that efficiency control, efficiency, comfort, and the safety is achieved. Examples are here: industrial setup, office interiors, furniture, automobiles, railways, and artifacts, interior designing, doors and tunnels, passage, etc. Measurements required are arm reach, limits, body clearances, clothing allowance, force, volume, eye location, and so on. Then is a smaller designing of components and devices. It includes small appliances such as electrical switches, levers, handles. They are done to ensure proper fit with hand and feet. And examples are hand holds, of fingertips, hand and foot size and shape. Human variation, which is the essence of anthropological inquiry, is not only fascinating, but also is the basis of identification of persons and categories of people. This we have seen. This is very fascinating science. But designing garments that are suitable to the users, exhibiting wide variation in physical, physiological, psychological, and social characteristics, is a daunting task for the scientist that requires both expertise and experience. The one which is beautiful, the variation, but when you have to handle variation for the commonness, then it becomes a difficult part. And that's what needs to be done. In a garment designing or the major steps in anthropometric sizing program development are the following points: identification of user population, identification of relevant body measurements, population description, selection of key body dimensions, formation of size categories and size intervals, data presentation in each size category, conversion of some summary data into design values, and determination of the sizing tariff. Now, I will be discussing that. It may be little more complex than otherwise one can think. For the experts, it may be very simple. For some newcomers, it may be little difficult. I will, because of limited time, I'll be rushing through them. And so maybe some points are not that clear as one would like, but they will give you a fair good idea about what has to be done, and it requires both experience and expertise. First of all, the user population has to be identified. Now, user population may not be in accordance with what we have learned in anthropology, like Mendelian populations, but the user population can be cross-cultural, inter-religious, inter-caste, and so on. For the development of effective design, it is necessary that identification of user population. In addition, one has to determine the general and specific characteristics of that user population. Variation in size, shape, body contours, etc. Influences the design, and thus it is important to clearly identify the target populations. Interpopulation variation in body size, shape, and strength are available in anthropological literature. Also, variation in these characteristics due to age, sex, occupation, social status are well documented. Identification of the relevant body measurements. That means you have to identify which measurements are important for designing a particular products. Say, for example, designing a shirt, then you need what other things? Designing a pen, designing anything else, you require pressure suits, you require different kind of relevant body measurements. Identify the measurements that one may find useful in designing the product. Arrange these measurements according to their relative significance. The measurements that replicate information or those who do not contribute significantly are omitted. In this way, the relevant measurements are identified. This step in the process of designing is critical as well as difficult. To draw a list of measurements require both experience and expertise. Similarly, when we come to population description, if information is available on the relevant body measurements of the target population, it can be used directly, but it is rare. If information is available on similar population, it can be still utilized with amendments, since the cost, time, and energy required for collecting fresh data are high. Under the most ideal condition, fresh data should be collected on all the relevant measurements on a sample that represents the target. In the development of size categories, the selection of key, now this is not relevant body measurement, but there are key body dimension, which is difficult task and plays a vital role. In addition to the research ability, experience, and intuition, the selection of key body dimensions depends on the following guidelines. The key body dimensions are basic to the design of the product. They are among the body measurements that significantly in designing the product. They are the ones that can be measured conveniently and accurately. They have lower order correlation with one another, but high order correlation with the other relevant body measurements. So they are, so suppose there are relevant measurements are 10, 15, 20, this may be only confined to 2, 3 maximum. We'll see how many relevant key body measurements can be taken in next slide. In practice, the first key body dimension is selected from the relevant body measurement, either by experience or by selecting the variable that shows high order correlation with most of the other relevant body measurements. So first has to be selected this way. The second key body dimension is selected on the basis that it has low order correlation with the first key body measurement, which has been already selected, but has high order correlation with the other measurements, which have been not considered earlier in the first key body dimension. The third key body dimension is selected on the basis that it has low order correlation with the first and the second key body dimension, but has a high order correlation with other measurements. Similarly, fourth key body dimension is selected if required. Generally, it cannot be accommodated. Selection of the key body dimension following the procedure laid above ensures the maximum variability is expressed by various measurement is considered. That means the key body dimensions altogether set 1, 2, 3, they should be able to express the maximum variability of the relevant measurements. However, in most cases, the selection of key body dimension is more often intuitive based on experience rather than statistical alone or statistical. The main consideration of making the size interval, now we have to make on the basis of size category and this thing, we have to make size intervals. In each size category should be as homogeneous as possible. That means we make sizes in each key body measurements in such a way that they are as homogeneous as possible. Or in other words, the least that is required is that variation in individual in a size category should not be large enough to cause a misfit of the final. That means we have to divide the key body measurement, each one of them, into different size intervals, and then we can proceed. Now the question comes, now how many size categories are made? Number of size categories. Now this point is very important. Number of size categories depends on number of key dimensions. We have taken already 3 or maybe 4, and number of size intervals. Suppose we have to calculate, we can calculate. Number of size categories will be multiple of size intervals in all key dimensions. Example, there are 3 key dimensions. First key dimension having 3 size intervals. We have selected that, divided the whole key body dimension into 3 intervals. So it has 3. The second key dimensions having 2. Maybe, it will be different in different experiments. 2 size intervals. Third key dimension having 2 size intervals will make number of size categories 12. That is 3 from the first, 2 from the second, 2 from the third, 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2. So that makes 12 size categories. The choice of selecting the number of key dimensions and the number of size interval is thus mutually dependent. And we'll see that this cannot be increased, neither the key body measurements nor the size intervals. Thus, neither the number of key dimensions nor the number of size categories intervals can be increased without adequate consideration. For example, if the fourth key dimension with 3 size interval is added to the last example, the number of size categories would increase from 12 to 36. And if the fifth dimension is added, 3 size intervals is added to number of size categories would increase from 36 to 108. Increase of number of size categories would defeat the purpose of sizing programs. So we have to restrict the number of key dimensions, and the number of size intervals have to be limited, because we generally expect about 12 to 36, 12 to 16 categories. Now, this example shows, this is for the, I'm talking about the key body dimensions. And there are 3 key body dimensions: key body dimension 1, key body dimension 2, key body dimension 3. The 3 first is chest circumference, 1, 2, 3 we have divided. Then the next one is the neck circumference. So CC1, NC1, CC2, and they will become 6 now. And if we do the third one, then they will become, if there are 3 bicremal breadth, I have taken up in 3 size intervals. So now these first 3 have the BA1, BA2, BA3, this size category 1, 2, 3, and it will make a combination of 12 size categories. So first having 3 divisions, second having 2 size intervals, the third having also 3. So 3 into 2 into 3. That is how it will work. So one can, anthropology design programs now aims at providing a good fit to the maximum number of individuals. There should be limited number of size categories, generally from 8 to 16. We cannot increase this into many, because otherwise the whole purpose of designing would be defeated. Individuals falling in size category should be homogeneous as far as possible for key body dimension and also for the relevant body dimension. This is the aim of, an ultimate aim, that how we make the categories, and whether the categories have been made perfectly will be known from this kind of analysis. Once this is done, then, now let's see the part, because the earlier part was difficult. So the first question the student asked, the learner is asking the person who is telling what is the question. in the second one, the teacher is trying to explain to the learner and explain, but at the end, the teacher himself get confused and is not able to explain. This is on the other side, that if their process is difficult, then one can have to take time to understand. After the development of size categories, statistics are required for all relevant body measurements separately for each category. I am giving you for size category 1 and 2, and it will be, suppose it will go on for category 12 or 18 or 16 or whatever number of size categories. And not only the key body measurement like chest circumference, neck circumference, shoulder width is taken, but there may be 10, 15 more relevant body measurements. So this is not key body measurement, but these are relevant body measurements, and they have to be arranged and mean, standard deviation, and percentile. I've already discussed elsewhere about the applications of percentiles in designing, so I'm not going. So this size category 1, and next is 2, and it will go on till all the categories which were chosen are covered with all the relevant body measurements and their description and stats. That will make our task. Now the next step will come. We have now to convert these summary values into the design values. For example, we might have taken chest circumference, but the shirt size chest circumference will be slightly bigger than this thing. So the data has to be converted down into design values. Design values are derived from the percentile values and or mean of the body measurement according to design exits. They are the functional values necessary for making an end product. For example, chest size of a shirt is derived from the statistics of chest dimension of a size category, and by adding a few centimeters will provide a loose fit. Now one has to know one's category. Suppose a user goes, he should know his size category, or the salesman should be able to find the size category quickly. So generally, one of the basic measurements used in manufacturing the product is considered to allow a person to identify his or her size category. Selection of measurements also depends on the fact that it should not be simple to take. Both users and the salesman should be able to take it, and it should not require the help of a technician or a specialist to measure. It should be, for example, stature or the foot length and so on. So we can take up some very simple measurements, and so it should not require any specialized thing. Then on the basis of prototypes are made from each size category on the basis of summary data and design values. The prototypes are then tested on the individual identified in size category. If they are found fit, they are used. Otherwise, again, the same process has to be done. Now, this particular part I've taken as an example. But now I will go to certain points again, referring back to what I've started with, the points to ponder, the things for thoughts for the workshop. Let me first of all going to the concluding remarks because of the time. This thing. See, we are talking about garment designing. This is the small one. We can go still further, which is a part of ergonomics, which is a part of anthropology, which is part of biological anthropology, which is a part of anthropology. So if the ergonomics has so much of applications, you can understand that anthropometry, how many applications they have. We have discussed some of them. And anthropometry is a small part of biological anthropology. How many applications or usefulness area or applied aspects will be there in biological anthropology? And when combined with cultural anthropology, archaeology, linguistic, how much application are in anthropology? This is my subject matter, anthropology, and I'm always proud to be an anthropologist. And therefore, I'm telling you what we are today discussing is a very minuscule and very small portion of application areas of anthropology. And therefore, anthropology is a great subject. I'm giving certain concluding remarks on that basis. Application of acumen of human variation to various aspects of human welfare makes anthropology one of the most relevant disciplines of the present era. I will even go to the extent that it is anthropology is the science of future. When we entered in the department, I was told that anthropology, oh, those people who study the past, the remains, the archaeology, the fossils, the stones and bones. Then came, no, we also study the contemporary. We talk about the present groups of people. We talk about today's world. But today I'm going to tell that it also talk about the future, because today some subjects like commerce, economics, and all these subjects may become very important. But tomorrow we'll be thinking of human welfare, the human life, the quality of life, and then the role of anthropology will be multifold. So just like its subject definition, anthropology is a study of man in time, also and space. The anthropologic applications are also in time, that it had application in past, it has application in present, and it will have application in future. So anthropometry is just a small part, and kinanthropometry is also a part of anthropological this thing. In recent years, what has happened that the horizons of anthropometry, the science of human body measurements, and its applications have amplified in the field of growth and nutrition, sports and physical fitness, comparative anatomy and human nutrition, classification and people according to size, shape, and composition, forensic anthropology, health and fitness, health and disease, environmental studies and ergonomics, and so on. So they are unlimited areas where the anthropology can find application. The techniques and methods under the ambit of anthropometry have advanced from two-dimensional to three-dimensional, from static to dynamic position, from traditional to customary, from standard to work postures, from morphological to morphophysiological. The approach, methods, and knowledge have increased efficacy of anthropometry in the already existing application and found relevance in new branches of knowledge. One of such studies in ergonomics, where anthropological knowledge has been used in designing devices, workspace, and garments and personal equipment to make them safe, comfortable, and efficient. With this, I thank you, all of you, for your kind attention, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I would firstly like to thank, I have so many people to thank for the way this workshop was conceived, and there were many people behind the progress of this workshop and how it was done. But foremost, I would like to thank our chief guest, who was always very supportive of the entire idea, from the title and everything. Sir, whenever I called him up for any suggestion or anything, sir always helped me and suggested very nice things and advised me how we can make this workshop better. First, the best part was that despite of his busy schedule, sir took some time out and agreed to be chief guest for this workshop and enlightened her with the brilliant inaugural address. I cannot think about anyone else other than sir for this inaugural address. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us and giving us such a brilliant address. It was very informative. I'm sure students and other participants who listened to your talk have immensely gained from it. Unfortunately, for inaugural address, we are not taking any questions. I know all of you must be having lots and lots of questions. I can see few raised hands also, but I'm extremely apologetic. I cannot take questions for the inaugural address, but certainly you can post your comments and your if at all you have questions, you can post it in the comment section, and I will personally deliver all those questions and everything to sir. And thank you so much for joining, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And and now we move on to our first session, first technical session of this workshop. I can see Patria there. Good morning, Patria. I mean, it is evening over there. Good evening. So happy to see you finally. And I would hand over the session to our moderator, Ms. Chonsing Shimra. She will take over the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, organizers.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Good morning to all. I welcome all the participants to the first session of today's workshop. The chair of this session is Professor P.R. Montel, and co-chair is Dr. Shivani Jandal. I would like to give a very brief introduction about the chair and co-chair. Professor P.R. Montel is a professor in Department of Anthropology, Delhi University. He teaches and has expertise in biological anthropology and forensic science, and his area of interests include primatology, paleoanthropology, molecular anthropology, and forensic science. He has guided many MPhil and PhD students. He has authored several books and published many research papers in reputed journals. And the co-chair of this session, Dr. Shivani Jandal, is an assistant professor in Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi. She teaches and has expertise in biological anthropology. Her area of interest includes human growth and development, KINANTHROPOMETRY and ergonomics, physiology, and occupational health. She has guided many research scholars. She also has published many research papers in peer-reviewed journals. Now I welcome Professor P.R. Mondal and Dr. Shivani Jandal to chair this first session.
Thank you, Chonsing. Thank you very much. I convey my thanks to the organizing secretary, Dr. Shivani Chandalji, for inviting me as a chairperson in this particular session. There are two speakers. One is Professor Patria Hume, and the second speaker is Dr. Anup Adhikari. Professor Patria Hume is an international scholar in applied sport science research with the risk factors of research that improves sport technique and reduces sports injuries. Her impactful research benefits sports worldwide with evidence of preventable injury. Her research distinction was recognized in 2016 with the most prestigious award in her field, the International Society of Biomechanics in Sports Geoffrey Dyson Award. In 2016, she received the AUT Research Medal and New Zealand Herald of the Year in recognition of her research. Patria was appointed by Her Excellency the Governor General of New Zealand as the first non-MD sports scientist to the Drug-Free Sport of New Zealand Board. She was elected as a Fellow of the Royal Society of New Zealand in 2021 as the first sports scientist to receive this appointment. Now I invite and request Patria Hume to deliver her lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen. Did that share for you? No. Here we go. How's that?
Yeah, now we can see.
Excellent. So thank you very much for the invitation to talk. I'm very honoured. Today, I'll be talking about the relevance of kinanthropometry for sports ergonomics and health. And I'd like to acknowledge the particular contributors that I'm drawing the examples from for you today. And that's Drs. Kelly Sheeran, Dr. Hannah White, Dr. Stephen Kalu's, and Dr. Tom Stewart. So when we're thinking about kinanthropometry and we're going to apply these methods, we need to think about which method should we choose. And we have to take into consideration the cost of the method, the access to the method, the time it takes to collect the data, and then which ones might be really relevant for our applications. And today I'll talk about some sport applications, some ergonomic applications, and some health applications. So first, I'd like to refer you to a textbook that was an international collaboration where we came up with protocols and definitions and real guidelines for how to use a number of different techniques. So in the slide here, you can see that there is DEXA scanning, BOD-POD, ultrasound, surface anthropometry, whole body scanning. And so today we will talk about some of those. And I thank the contributors to this book because it's a worldwide group of experts, in particular ISAC level 4 experts who have contributed to the book. Now, they've also produced videos. So if you'd like some more information about some of the techniques I'm going to be talking about today, you can go to the Prof. Petria YouTube channel and you will see all the videos there. And I'll be showing some excerpts of some of those videos today. So let's start off looking at applications for sport. We will be looking at the lower cost surface anthropometry. This is very portable, but it does require good skill and technique and training to be accurate, valid, reliable. We'll then look at some examples using bioelectrical impedance, and we'll talk about the pros and cons of using this technique. We'll then move on to whole body 3-dimensional scanning, which is more expensive and not so portable. So the reason I showed you that video was rugby is the national sport for New Zealand. And our understanding of body size and shape and physique is really important for rugby to succeed in terms of performance, but also to reduce injury risk. And here for the All Blacks, you can see the changes over time from 1972 to 2012 for their body mass. We can see differences between the forward positions in white and the back position in red. So you can see that rugby is a good sport for a variety of different playing sizes. But what I want you to look at is this vertical line, where is professionalism of rugby. And you can see that there has been a huge increase in terms of the body mass. This means that players are heavier, they are moving faster because they've got better conditioning. So when they impact upon each other, there is more likelihood of injury. Someone has their microphone on. Maybe they could turn it off, please. Thank you. So one of the issues with rugby is being injured. And so, unfortunately, in New Zealand, there are 16-year-olds and under, 39% of them get injured and have brain injury or concussions. So this is a real issue. So we need to understand the anthropometry of young players, in particular developing, to see what we can do to try and reduce the risk of injury. So in the UK, doctors were calling for the rugby tackle to be banned in school children. And the reason for this was because of the increase in the risk of injury. And what they called for was a specific chronological age. Now, I want you to think about anthropometry and what the difference is between chronological age and biological age and why it matters when you're making a call for chronological age to be the threshold for children to not play tackle football. So this was one of the questions I was asked as an expert in biomechanics, injury prevention, and kinanthropometry. because you can see in the black and white picture, this is a slide of two children who are aged 6. And you can see one is clearly head and shoulders above the other. So when we use chronological age, our maturational age could be quite variable. And we also have differences between the rates of maturation for males and females. So we need to take into consideration both sex, chronological age, and maturational age. So in terms of injury risk, there are a lot of factors, and anthropometry and understanding of growth and age are just a few. And on the slide, you can see in terms of injury, there's a lot of different things that we need to consider. So anthropometrists are part of a multidisciplinary team to be able to look at questions like this one that was posed to me. So what I get asked often is, when should we start measuring youths if we're interested in tracking to see whether they might be good athletes, whether they might be at risk of injury, whether they are starting to go through the pre-pubertal period, and how often then should we measure these youths? So for example, we've got a young infant in one of the biomechanics labs. You know, is it suitable to measure infants, and how tricky is it to measure infants, and what techniques could we use to measure infants and get accurate measurements? The strength and conditioning and application of understanding of muscle mass, lean muscle mass, tissue, adipose tissue and its growth. What age should we be measuring, and how should we measure? Because skin folds are very invasive. And what about design of equipment and how we might scale equipment when we know what the measurements are? These are the types of questions we need to consider as anthropometrists and be able to provide answers. Now we know that as children grow and they go through growth spurts, they can become very uncoordinated. And so this coordination puts them at an increased risk of injury. And that's why we try to adapt and use small-sided games, have modified equipment so it's smaller and scaled to the individual, so they don't have to focus on trying to handle a very large piece of equipment, but rather can really focus on their body movements. So we know that there's difference in growth in the bones. So take the leg, for example. Did you know that the leg growth is really uneven? So we know that there are growth plates at the end of the bones, and that's where most of the growth occurs. But if we look at the lower limb, there's more growth in the femur than there is in the tibia. And there's more growth at the knee end part of the femur and the tibia than there is at the hip or the ankle. And so this increase in growth can lead to issues in terms of injuries. So two key examples are here, where the patellar tendon attaches to the top of the tibia. In children, we can have major issues in that area, and that's called Osgood-Schlatter's disease. We can also have issues with the insertion of the Achilles on the calcaneus, and that's called Sever's disease. So what it means is when children start to feel pain in these areas, we need to take notice, because it means they're undergoing a lot of growth, and we need to protect the end plates of the bones. Now, we need to understand anthropometry, not only for growth and development, but also for risk of injury from acute injuries. And this slide represents an anterior cruciate ligament injury. We know that females are more prone to injury for ACLs, and one of the issues is the anatomy of the knee and the way in which the patella slides within the trochlear groove, and looking at how we might have anatomical differences that can increase the risk of injury. Now, we could find really good detail about bones if we x-rayed people. And in the past, that used to be what was done. When I was a competing gymnast, we used to have hand x-rays to look at our growth and development and also to determine whether they thought we were of a real chronological age based on whether the bones had formed and fused. But this puts us at risk of radiation. So what we want to do is to be able to measure less invasive ways of looking at our bone development and growth. And the middle picture shows some data from New Zealand. We have a national insurance corporation that allows us to collect data on every New Zealander to see what the injuries are and how much it costs for the rehabilitation of those injuries. So in gymnasts, you can see that there's a lot of knee injuries and ankle injuries, and that's because of the landing mechanisms that are used. And again, I talked about the end plates of the bones and issues with the ankles and knees for overuse. So you can see it's a real issue and concern and why we need to track our young athletes properly. One of the studies that I did with Elizabeth Bradshaw in Australia, she's a biomechanist, we looked at the Australian Ballet School and training of both male and female ballet dancers to look and see if we could predict injury risk, because they have a high risk of injury. And we could. If we looked for the males at their foot and the length of their foot and how that was growing, that was able to predict injury risk. So that was a good example of an easy measure to then indicate to us we needed to be very careful watching those ballet dancers. Now, we also know that some bone measures are quite stable, like the breadth of the humerus and the femur. But other bones, the long bones in particular, are not very stable, as I've just indicated, because they grow at different rates. So we can use the unstable growth measures to look at how things are changing during development. But if we were measuring the breadth of the femur, it wouldn't be sensitive enough to show some of those changes. So we need to select our variables carefully. Now, there is stress on participants, particularly young sports participants, to be the next Tiger Woods or the Serena Williams and to be an elite athlete. And so there is a lot of pressure on our youth to be the right size and shape. So we need to be very careful as anthropometrists in terms of how we track people, what information we give to them, and when we give it to them. And we need to ensure we're part of a team to make sure that there's no psychological detrimental effects of us measuring body composition of young athletes or the general population. Even at the elite level, so this screen shows the size of issues by the size of the text. So weight for an elite athlete, this was a survey of our high performance athletes in New Zealand, all female athletes. And the overwhelming feedback was that they felt a lot of pressure to achieve and maintain that optimal body composition for their sport and position. So there are health issues that can evolve because of this emphasis on being lean and strong and having a low content of adipose fat tissue. You've probably heard of the athlete triad or REDS, and so having a good understanding of physiology and hormonal changes is really important alongside understanding the basic anthropometry characteristics. So this is an example of level 4 kinanthropometrist, Dr. Gary Slater, taking a skin fold on an elite athlete. So that was 3.6. You can see that's a very lean athlete. Now, if you're taking those very small skin folds, you need to be very accurate, because otherwise you're going to show large differences between test and retest. And so the reason why we have the International Society for the Advancement of Kinanthropometry and very strict guidelines and criteria of how to take measures is that it increases our reliability between session to session, so we can see if we have a real change in the person and it's not us as the measurer that's making the difference. So that's why every 4 years we have a practical examination and a refresh. I'm a level 4 criterion anthropometrist, so that means I'm supposed to be the gold standard, but I need to check my technique with other gold standard anthropometrists as well to ensure that I am still an expert measurer. So the certification lasts for 4 years. It ensures that we can maintain best professional practice, that we know what our errors of measurement are for each of the individual measurements, whether they are skin folds or girths. And it also ensures that we really are up to date with the new technologies and techniques, because it's not just about surface anthropometry anymore. What I do want to point out is that ISAC is very adamant you have to have a good understanding of anatomy for an anthropometry. And that's because we use these bony landmarks to be able to then identify where we take other measurements. So one of the studies that I did with Professor Mike Marfell-Jones and Dr. Kelly Sheeran was looking at where you take the skin folds and why does it matter? Why are we so particular about marking and ensuring that we have the right finger grip and the caliper distance from our fingers? Well, what we showed was that when we were taking these measurements in a grid around where the real ISAC point was, there could be large differences in the skin fold when you deviated from that site. So it does matter where you take the skin folds. Now, one of the problems with skin folds is the caliper compresses the tissue. And so there's a new technique using ultrasound that enables the tissue to be measured in an uncompressed way. It still uses 8 standard sites, and you have to use your knowledge of anatomy to mark those crosses on the body. But then you use the ultrasound probe placed on the surface of the skin to be able to look through that skin and adipose tissue and muscle to the bone to then be able to measure what those components are. And so the fat analysis tool that has been developed enables semi-automatic calculation of those compartments using the ultrasound. Now, there's even more advanced techniques, and this is the bod pod. And so that allows a person to sit inside it and to be able to calculate body density and to estimate the body composition. So this is Dr. Gary Slater giving an indication of how to do the measurement and how to explain to the elite athlete what is going on. So you can see a clear explanation of what to do for the athlete. Now you can see the limitations of the bod pod. You can't be a really big rugby player because you wouldn't fit in there. And it's also slightly claustrophobic. So that's one of the issues. So it's expensive, maybe claustrophobic, you have to hold your breath, and you can't be too big to get into that bod pod. Now, I do want to talk about some practical applications of surface anthropometry. And I want to talk about the Sydney 2000 Olympic study, because this was a large scale survey and there's not too many of them in sport because they're very difficult to conduct and it takes a lot of people to be trained. So we trained up some students in both Australia and New Zealand, and we had expert level 4 kinanthropometrists from around the world. And we spent 4 weeks in Australia at the Sydney Olympics, prior to the Olympics and during the Olympics, on a road trip around Australia to measure people in their hotel rooms and by their swimming pools, and also in the competition venue itself. Now, we measured 409 rowers and kayakers in total from 35 countries. So this is one of the most comprehensive studies conducted at an Olympics. What we looked at was a full profile, the kinanthropometry profile, but we also looked at measurements of the boats, the kayaks and the rowing skiffs. And what we looked at was the relationships between the body composition and body dimensions and the equipment setup to see if there were difference between medalists and non-medalists and where people were placing from different weight categories for open, lightweight and open class rowers. And we could see differences. So these data enable people to see what size and shape you need to be an elite athlete, because they were quite homogeneous in terms of the medal winners, and also how you can set up your equipment better so that you can get a winning advantage to take heed of your levers and to be able to improve your technique. Because at Olympics, every millisecond counts. So if you can optimize the interaction between your anthropometry and the equipment, you could be more likely to have a medal. Another example in sport is cycling biomechanics and using your anthropometry to set your bike up correctly. This has performance indicators, but also injury risk indicators. Because if you do not measure your legs properly, set up your seat height correctly, both in the up and also forward and back positions, then you can get increased risk of patellofemoral pain and other injuries. And so Dr. Rodrigo Binney has done a series of studies looking at anthropometry and cycle setup. Another practical application of anthropometry is in elite sailing. So Team New Zealand, we were fortunate to work with, and one of their questions was, how could we get maximum performance out of our grinders? They're the people who are at the front of the boat. They're generating the power to be able to change the sails. And so what we found was that longer limbs increase the leverage and then increase the torque. So this is what we do as biomechanists. We think about what is the performance, the key performance indicator, and how might various variables be measured, and what are the most important variables. So for us, for upper body grinding, it was the lever lengths and the mass distribution. So in this example, you can see that we have a grinder of the same height as indicated by the green and the red, but with changes in their technique, they were able to use their center of mass more effectively to be able to improve the torque or the output of the grinder. Now, with this grinding team, we measured their anthropometry regularly with surface anthropometry, so it was accurate. But they needed to travel overseas, and the kinanthropometrist couldn't travel with them for such a length of time, it was too expensive. So we looked at bioelectrical impedance analysis because we wanted to ensure that we could get good body dimension information, body composition information by something more portable. Unfortunately, even though this is a more portable device, it was very variable dependent upon the amount of hydration that the athletes had. And as you can understand, when you're training in an elite sport and you're sweating a lot, you lose a lot of water. And so therefore, bioelectrical impedance was not a good measure to try and look at what the overall condition of the sailors were. Now we'll look at some ergonomics examples. So Dr. Stephen Kalu's used the 3D whole body scanner from the New Zealand Defence Force. The benefit of using the volume and limb cross-sectional area, waist girth, waist-hip ratio, etc. from a scanner is it's a very quick measurement because it takes about 5 seconds for each scan where you have to hold your breath. But unfortunately, a scanner is expensive. It is portable because we did take it around the countryside. For Stephen's PhD, he measured 1,003 uniformed personnel. So New Zealand only has a population of 5 million. And so the 1,000 people for our Defence Force was a very good sample, a good randomized selection sample, stratified sample, I should say. And it enabled us to measure approximately 10% of the overall Defence Force. There were more males than females, and that was representative of the population in the Defence Force. And it was for Air Force, Navy, and Army. And you can see where we took the scanner throughout New Zealand to collect these measurements. Now, what we found, and thank you, Professor Malik, for providing the nice introduction to this ergonomics, we used cluster analysis to look at the design of clothing, because in the military, you don't want clothing to be too tight because then you can't move appropriately, and you don't want it to be too baggy or it could get caught on something, you can trip and fall and be injured. So we were interested in how we could use the 3D body scanner to quickly allocate the size of shirts and trousers and other uniform materials to new recruits. So we looked at the data from the current defence personnel and used cluster analysis to look at what we might do for shirt size. So at the top, you can see female data, and at the bottom, male data, and it's body height versus waist girth. You can clearly see that, as we expect, males are taller than females, and they've got more wider waist girth than the females. But interestingly, you can see for the males, there are 10 clusters of shirt sizes, whereas for the females, there were only 6 clear clusters for shirt sizes. So this comes down to the point that when you're designing clothing, you need to have appropriate sizes that are based on a variety of different variables that then allow you to provide options. And so now you can see for males, there would be 10 different sizes for the shirts, females only 6. How Stephen got this data with a well-trained team was using 25 physical measurements, including the ISAC surface anthropometry measurements. And then from the body scanner, there were 17 automatic variables that could be calculated reliably and validly. And then we needed to do 42 post-process variables. So out of all the hundreds of different variables that could be measured from previous Defence Force surveys around the world, we came up with 84 in total that we were happy with, that we could reliably measure. So overall, Stephen has in the database 84,252 body measurements. Now, it includes, as I said, the ISAC standard surface measurements, but also this device here called a Brannock device, which allows you to look at arch height. And that's really important when you're designing boots for the military. This is a picture of the scanner. You can see that the person has to stand in particular positions so that we get good data. As I said, they hold their breath and the laser goes down over the body. It's perfectly safe for the eyes. So as long as the person just holds their breath, you get good, reliable data. And the information comes up within a few seconds. Now, it's important to have the right positions because otherwise you end up with these problems. Here you can see some webbed skin. You can see that there are holes on the surface. And you can also see some additional artifact that, you know, they're not sitting on a cushion. This is something that's just come in. So the positioning of the people in the scanner is very important. Now, with the 84 measures that we're very happy with, we have a number of tables that allow you to have the percentages, the means and the percentiles that Professor Malik was talking about for both the Air Force, Army and Navy for females and males. And we've really indicated clearly what the posture is that is required, the procedure, so that it's very technical to be able to get everything right, and the references. So this book is available free for you. If you go to our Lindsay Carter Kinanthropometry Clinic and Archive at AUT University, you can download the book, and it has all of the tables. It has a description of previous surveys around the world for military. It indicates some of the issues of setting up a large-scale survey like this, because it takes a lot of organization. Now, I've also been very fortunate to work with Professor Brendan Burkett. He is a Paralympian for swimming and also a biomechanist. And so one of our projects together was to try and design a prosthesis for a rugby player. We wanted rugby players to be able to turn and change direction quickly, because they need to be effective in those types of movements, not just running in a straight direction like you see on normal blades. Now, to be able to get good data for designing these types of prosthetics, you need really good anatomy and scanning, because the fit of the prosthesis needs to be good so that you don't get more injuries to the stump of the prosthetic. So now let's look at some health examples and applications of kinanthropometry. One of the studies that we're using the scanner for is called Te Kukunetanga, which in Māori means basically physical evolution through pregnancy. And our aim is to monitor changes in body shape and to look and see how pregnant women change with their movements and balance throughout their pregnancy, and also 6 months after birth. And the reason this is important is that there is increased risk of falling as you become pregnant. And there are other issues where sometimes people think, should I be doing particular movements or not? So we are measuring the health and activity, their questionnaires, we're doing health checks, some of their physiological measurements. We're looking at functional movement, as well as their morphology, their size and shape through the 3D body scanner. And we're doing full 3-dimensional biomechanical assessment. So this is an example of the scanner that you saw in the previous picture, just further down, so you can see how far the scanner goes. And it produces very good output data, which enables us to accurately measure the dimensions that we're interested in to look at changing size and shape. This is Dr. Hannah Wyatt, who has one of the participants inside the foot scanner. Sometimes you need more detailed, defined information, because the whole body scanner gives you good general information, but for the detail of the foot, maybe design of shoes, you need to have this type of scanner. And what it allows is an understanding of the form of the foot and then the function of the foot. If you can do what we've got here, where you have the same participant walking across a pressure mat, and that allows us to see, as they move over that mat, how the forces or the pressure changes underneath the foot. And if you've got a good understanding of the bony structures of the foot, you can see where there might be pressure changes and increased risk of injury. And in our 3-dimensional biomechanics lab, the participants can walk across the embed treadmill that has force plates in it, which means that we can calculate the ground reaction forces. And there's multiple cameras around the room, which means that we can track markers on the skin, so we can get joint angles. And combining that information, the angles and the forces, we can calculate inverse dynamics and calculate, for example, knee joint moments. We're really interested in getting better models for our biomechanical analysis, because models have been designed for non-pregnant populations. So to understand how our movement is changing, we need to understand how our anthropometry is changing and affecting that movement. And one of our very talented students, Elliot Snedden, had calculated using an app where the center of mass of individual segments was very quickly as a result of the three-dimensional whole body scan. Now, this is really important because it allows individualized data to go into our models. So here you can see a model of a pregnant woman, and individualized data can go into creating these models. So then we can track the individual woman over time using their individualized model. And this is really important, as I said, because some of the questions that midwives are being asked is, how long should I keep running? What type of exercise should I do? So we need to understand and be able to track easily the size and shape of women to be able to then give them some guidance as to what types of activities are safe for them. And we currently have an international survey. So if anyone out there knows of pregnant women, please go to our website at sprins@AUT and you'll see the international experience survey for pregnancy during running. Now, one other example I'd like to give you is the importance of weight prediction in pediatric resuscitation. This is really important to be able to save lives. The clinicians, paramedics need to be able to make decisions very quickly about calculation of medication doses, the intubation tube sizes, and what they need to do. Usually they will take a weight estimate. They will estimate then what the drug dose is based on that weight estimate, and they will estimate what equipment size. And this is when they're under a lot of stress, having to make decisions quickly. Usually the way weight is estimated in children worldwide, there's 25 different techniques. None of them have used mobile technology before, and they're usually based on either the chronological age of the child or an estimate of the length of the child. And so what Dr. Sally Britnell did was she developed an app that meant that you could take a quick photo of the child. In this case, it's an infant, a healthy infant in this case. It would give you a weight estimate, which then meant you could very quickly decide what intubation tube you wanted and what medication dose you would be providing. So this means then you can continue on with resuscitation quickly and ensure that you've got better outcomes for children who are sick. Now, there are a lot of apps on the market, and the question is, are they valid or not? And so we have Dr. Deborah Kerr, Professor Deborah Kerr, indicating in one of the videos on the Prof. Petria YouTube channel, a discussion about, is spot reduction of body fat really possible? Given that some apps like this one here that we've just chosen, the Shape app, indicates, you can track fat mass quickly, you can indicate where the differences are on your body. And so if you've got some theory in anthropometry and you know about overall body mass or adiposity tissue reduction, how likely are you to get spot reduction of body fat? Everyone wants to get rid of their tummy or their excess, adipose tissue on their legs. How easy is that and how valid is that? So just a word of warning, be very clear when you're choosing particular apps or methodologies, how valid are they? Now, to get very technical, you'll see we've moved from surface anthropometry, which is lower cost, more movable, now to combining all of these high-tech examples, in this case using DEXA scans, in with the three-dimensional kinematics. This is the work of Professor Jackie Alderson. It's called the Digital Athlete Program. It allows you to combine millions of data points and to be able to estimate a variable from another variable. So for example, if you just had a DEXA scan using artificial intelligence, machine learning, you could estimate the risk of having an anterior cruciate ligament injury because you could model and map that DEXA scan information into movement capacity from the three-dimensional lab. So it's amazing what we can do now, and you can get very accurate, valid information. So this is an example of a more portable system which uses 34 cameras, and the image that you can see moving around with the video that is created from those cameras using artificial intelligence. You can see there's a bit of a problem with some webbing between the legs, but it's coming up with simpler ways to be able to calculate very complicated data. This is where we're from at AUT in New Zealand and Auckland. And I'd like to show you through the laboratory so that you can see that we work in a multidisciplinary way. We focus on children through to elite athletes. And this is the facility for our J.E. Lindsay Carter Kinanthropometry Clinic and Archive. So this is inside the physiology laboratory. The biomechanics laboratory. Now we translate what we learn in the elite athletes, as you can see here in the physiology assessment, into the general public so that we can help prevent diabetes and heart attacks. And as you can see, rugby is our national sport. We're passionate about it, but we need to ensure that we can train our athletes in a safe way so that they can grow and develop without injury, and they can perform and be the best athletes that they can be. So I would welcome you to come and visit and study with us or train with us or be part of a collaborative project at AUT Millennium. And I'd really like to thank you for inviting myself and the team to present in this very special kinanthropometry and human welfare session. And I congratulate you on your 75 years of the department. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Petria. Thank you very much for your enlightening speech. I'm sure that the scholars, students, especially those who are working on this field of kinanthropometry, will be immensely benefited by your lecture. Honestly, your lecture even enriched my knowledge too. Thank you very much, Petria. But now this session is open for discussion. Professor Petria, would you like to answer some questions?
Certainly.
Okay. Now, I invite people whosoever have any query, please ask to her. Feel free to ask her, please.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure, sure.
Professor Pat, you remember me? I'm Dr. Joseph from India. Yes, like a colleague. We met in China in 2008. After 2008, it's the first time we're meeting. It is nice to hear you, an enriching talk and the high-level studies done on top athletes and differently able groups and women. And you have touched many areas which are very much relevant to the sporting community as well as the anthropometrists. Now, my question, why don't you extend your work to the Asian countries? Because we lack a lot of information on Asian population. And much is done on Europeans and Americans and of course that belt. And we have got ISIK experts like Dr. Adhikari and many involved in up to level 2 and level 3 from India and Asian countries. But unfortunately, the studies have not come up to the Olympic level. I mean, the anthropometry, the sport anthropometry, and the supporting system. The sports science labs in India as well as Asian region are not much developed. And in cooperation with the anthropologists and a collaborative study with nutritionists, all those things can contribute a lot to this area of science. And what is your opinion? What way we can extend our knowledge or expertise to the Asian region? Thank you.
Yes, so it's a very good question. And we do have a number of students from India in New Zealand studying at the moment, in particular cricket, as you can understand, because cricket is really your national sport. And so we have started to do more studies with ethnic diversity. So I work a lot with colleagues in Japan. And so we've been trying to ensure that we've got more anthropometrists in Japan to add that ethnic group to the the world database. But unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity to come to India yet. I hope other colleagues can. But I think anthropometrists are very friendly and they really want to help each other. And with the Lindsay Carter KINANTHROPOMETRY database now, it means that we can share data. So like we've done with the military survey, we've put that up there so people can use it. So I agree. We should be putting in for some more studies at other big events. There's never been a large-scale survey at a Cricket World Cup. And yet we need to know information about cricket players because there's a large increase in, lumbar fractures and training loads that we can look at. There's definitely performance prediction variables from the biomechanics work that Professor Jackie Alderson has done in terms of lever lengths and ability to fast bowl. So I think it would be very exciting to collaborate, and I would, love the opportunity.
Cricket, we have got enough from Australia. Even we have very good motion analysis lab in SRM University and all. But I'm talking about in general, general science like anthropology, incorporating the nutritionists and overall contribution to the Asian region countries in developing the sport. Thank you.
I must say, Professor Elaine Rush, who's one of our emeritus professors, she has done a lot of work actually looking at differences between different ethnicities, including different types of Asians, to look at the subcutaneous fat and metabolism and major differences, good ethnic differences. And she used doubly labeled water techniques as well as other KINANTHROPOMETRY variables. So there are discrete studies where we are looking at different options, but yeah, not as many done.
Thank you.
Anybody else is having any query or questions?
I can see some in the chat. So yes, I will upload the YouTube link soon for you. And anyone can have access to the slides. I can give you those as well. And in terms of the target weight for athletes, Anthropology Sports Authority of India, yes, happy to share any information that we have.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I think in future also, you will enlighten us with your lecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank
Professor Patria, sir, 1 minute.
Okay.
Professor Patria, soon we will give you the reasons to visit India. You said you never visited our country. So when this pandemic will end, we would definitely invite you. Please come and visit us and guide us wherever it's needed. And thank you for giving such a lovely and wonderful talk. And I especially requested her that the talk will be basically the population, majority of the people will be students. So instead of having a lot of questions, they have learned a lot actually from the lecture. And the moment it will settle down, then they might ask me, ma'am, Professor Petri was talking about this, talking about that. But it was very enriching experience for all of them. And thank you for agreeing to be part of this workshop and joining us. Thank you so much. Thank you, Petri.
Dr. Shivani,
Yes.
we can keep this opportunity for our pre-Congress as well.
Yes, yes, yes. So
Okay.
we are, yes, definitely. I will contact you again for that also. It's a very big event happening in 2023 January. So we are this throughout this year we are having a lecture series, but pre-Congress is a very important event for all of us. So definitely I will contact you.
And we hope by 2023 we'll throw away the Corona, COVID-19.
And we'll see you personally. We'll see you personally. We'll meet
Yes,
all
that
of
would
us.
be lovely. And I do apologize. I will have to leave the session. I'll try and come in and out, but it's going to be quite late here for me in New Zealand. So thank you for letting me go at this
Yes,
time.
yes,
So
please, definitely, definitely. Thanks for joining. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Well, our next speaker is Dr. Anup Adhikari. Let me tell you that Dr. Anup Adhikari is an international instructor of the International Society for the Advancement of KINANTHROPOMETRY, Murcia, Spain. He is a postdoctoral fellow in exercise physiology at University of Calcutta, India. His proficiency in taste and measurement are as aerobic power, capillary blood lactate and hemoglobin, threshold heart rate and training heart rate zone, pulmonary function tests, ECG, and monitoring heart rate, power test, somatotype and body fat, and work output, calorie expenditure, etc. Dr. Anup has served as junior scientific officer for a decade from 1990 to 2000 in Sports Authority of India. Not only in India, but he also served as foreign expert in sports science from 2000 to 2007 in Bangladesh Institute of Sports. In the year 2008, he served as exercise physiologist in Sports Medicine Center, West Bengal State Council of Sports. He also served as associate professor in physiology from 2009 to 2010 in our neighboring country, Nepal, at Kathmandu University School of Medicinal Sciences. I'm sorry. And now I invite and request Dr. Anup Adhikari to deliver his speech.
Thank you. Am I audible? Yeah, okay. So let me share my screen. Yes, like it is coming up. Now, the videos no, then I can't see the part. How to slide sharing of this one. This is F5, Control F5 or something like that. Shivani?
Yes, we can see your slide.
No. I can't share it with the whole screen. I'm talking about that one. This lower portion, this upper portion is not coming up. That's why. This one. 1 minute. I think we have to press F5. I can't see. Just 1 minute. Every time it's get a problem. Just 1 minute. How to share? How to share this one? Slideshow. Yeah. Slideshow from beginning. No, it's okay. My God. It's okay now? Shivani is okay?
Yes, we can see, sir.
Yes, yes, okay, okay. It's very much okay.
Okay, actually the upper part is not moving. Okay,
Please carry on, sir. No problem.
okay. Let me start from the beginning. Okay, sorry. Actually, every time I have a problem with the computer. And thank you, Shivani, for calling this one. Last 1.5 years, I am stranded in India, and also I'm not well. So maybe sometimes I may miss some things. Okay. So let us start. Now today the theme was kinanthropometry and human welfare. Kinanthropometry and human welfare. I am actually basically professionally I'm a physiologist, also I'm a personal trainer. I look after North America and take the classes of anthropometry in North America, especially Canada, USA, and Mexico, and also in India, Bangladesh, these two countries. So basically, I'm a personal trainer also, and also nutrition and wellness specialist. Now, today's topic is kinanthropometry and human welfare. Actually, at the beginning, I didn't have the idea what is the welfare. When Shivani told me, I thought it is human health and wellness. Then I saw welfare is meaning is totally different. So it took time to adjust it with the kinanthropometry. Now, of course, what is welfare? Because for us, some people, we are not clear about the welfare. I was not also clear about the welfare. According to the definition, human welfare is a wide term where health, happiness, prosperity, and well-being in general are common aspects beside financial and other assistance given to a people in need. What I realize, welfare is the state of good health, happiness, and comfort, which is assisted. That's the question, assisted. So the theme is beautiful. How can anthropometry assist the people or the population to have an good health and wellness condition? How can anthropometry assist? Now, so there is a question, how can anthropometry is related with human welfare? Let me move it slightly this side. Always I have this problem. Okay. Now, first of all, we have to know what is kinanthropometry. Of course, you know, everyone you know, but still, suppose there are some students out there, they may have some not good concept on kinanthropometry. Actually, of course, you know, those who are from anthropology. So anthropometry to part living and non-living. Non-living, of course, kinetometry, osteometry. But living part is called somatometry. Now, this somatometry, when deals with morphological aspects, application of morphological aspect to movement, and factors which influence the movement, that is the important part, third part, that we call them kinanthropometry. So, in precisely you can say, when kinanthropometry deals with the structure, function, the factors which influence movements. That's the important part. Here the how kinanthropometry actually when they act as welfare, we call kinanthropometry. The factor, that is the important part, I'm coming to that part. The factors, kinanthropometry in terms of, should I stop there? Who can see the 1 minute? Every time I have a problem with the computer. Yeah, now it's okay, slightly. The kinanthropometry in terms of body composition, nutrition, body shape and size, somatotype, growth and development, motor abilities, physiological aspects, and physical activities. In this way, they assist. These factors, they assist to improve human health as human welfare. That is how kinanthropometry act as a welfare. These factors which influence the kinanthropometry, they assist to improve the human health and wellness and act as a human welfare. Let me come how. Now, how these factors, kinanthropometry, assist to improve human welfare? That is a question. That is the theme of the this workshop. How kinanthropometry assist? Before we discuss about how kinanthropometry assist, we should know the two things. The kinanthropometry main thing, the somatotype, we have to know, because without knowing the body shape and size, we can't explain it. As because, for example, wellness is a person of sometimes depends on person's body shape and size. Larger waist can lead to a higher risk of cardiovascular diseases, severe factors, these and that. So kinanthropometry teach people how to the base of the kinanthropometry. Otherwise, very difficult for a person to apply kinanthropometry person. That is actually touch it in very short, because everybody know. Now, the somatotype is the classification of human physique based on body shape and size. More precisely, when you quantify the human body, it is a quantification we call somatotype. That is a theory. That is, somatotype is the classification of human physique based on body shape and size, but not that part. More precisely, if you go straight, that is the quantification of human body shape and size. For example, what is quantification? Suppose Anup, somebody says, okay, suppose somebody says, who is from Patiala, he said, Anup is muscular, Shivani is also muscular. But somebody who is in Calcutta, who has never seen Anup and Shivani, very difficult for him to say who is more muscular, Shivani or Anup. But if somebody says, no, Shivani's muscularity is 6 and Anup muscularity is 5, it is very easy for the person who is in Calcutta to say Shivani is more muscular than Anup. For example, again, somebody says Shivani is more fatty than Anup. Very difficult to say how much fatty, how much difference, who has never seen us. But if somebody says Shivani's endomorphy is 6, Anup endomorphy is 4, the person who had never seen us easily can say Shivani is more endomorphic, means fatty, than Anup. That is the how we quantify the human body, that is somatotype. And we give them point, of course, 0.5 to 12 plus, previously it was 9 and 12 plus. Then on one more thing, somatotype, we all have a 3 component. They express the human body by 3 components, that is the fattiness, muscularity, and leanness. The fattiness we call endomorphy component, the muscularity we call mesomorphic component, and ectomorphy we call the linearity component, we call ectomorphy. So everyone we have all these 3 components, but one is prominent, other 2 is less. One is prominent. Okay, suppose I am muscular, so muscularity is prominent, endomorphy and ectomorphy will come serially. And then we write it always. So this is example of endomorphy, example of mesomorphy, and example of ectomorphy. And always we write it like a 3 points from 3, 5 to suppose from first endomorphy, mesomorphy, ectomorphy. Can't write on other way. Okay, so 3 is the indicates the endomorphy, 5 mesomorphy, and 2 is the linearity. 3 the fattiness, 5 is the muscularity, 2 is the linearity. Now, this example, suppose endomorphy. I took this one from Carter books. So this example of endomorphy, here 11, 6 and half. the body type. 11 is the endomorphic component, highly, you can say, obese. Good muscularity, 6, muscularity good, and 0.5 or half is the linearity, very less linearity. Second is the mesomorphic, have 11, 1. No fat, you can say, but more muscular, 11 and 1. And third one is ectomorphic, the Maasai group from Africa, 1 to 8, like that way. Now we have the scale, of course, the scale is there, half to 2.5 low, 3 to 5 moderate, 5.5 to 7 high, 7.5 above, extremely high. This is the Carter classification. And this is the we all categorize. I'm not going to touch this part, mesomorphic, endomorphic, ectomorphic, mesomorphic, because when you are explaining, suppose Shivani had never seen me, if Joseph measured me and said, Shiva, he can tell Shivani that Anup is endomorphic, mesomorphic. So very good have an idea, Shivani, about me that Anup is muscular, but he has some fat also. Or Joseph measures me, he said Anup is ectomorphic, endomorphic. So Shivani has a good idea, okay, Anup is fatty, endomorphic, but endomorph, but he has also linearity there. This is the way how we categorize. And that is very important when you go for the welfare activity. I'm coming to that part later on. And these are calculated, these are how the equations are there, available everywhere. Okay, endomorphic, mesomorphic, ectomorphic. Okay, it is there. These are important part. Now these 3 points, endomorphy, mesomorphy, and ectomorphy, when we plot in a chart, we call somato chart. The 3-dimensional into 2-dimensional, we call somato chart. When we plot it, then we can make a plan how to develop the health and wellness as a part of welfare, This chart is very, very important. If I can't plot it on the chart, I can't tell someone, no, you have to go there, because all these segments 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are different body type, and especially we always prefer the upper top, the corner, these actually ectomorphic, mesomorphic, all body type we prefer should be over there. Okay, like this, there are all some 10 or 12 children of Kerala, and they should go over there. Easily you can say you should go there. That is the role of the kinanthropometry, to tell the people or coaches or others what their body type should be and what type of exercise program and nutrition to be done. Now here you see, now where the kinanthropometry assists to reduce excess fat as human welfare. This is a lady, body type is 641. So 641 is not well sometimes, because psychologically he may be not feeling well, that I'm fatty. So how in kinanthropometry help act as a welfare, assist her? Kinanthropometry says, hey, you are over here. So you have to move your body type over there. Means 641 to 146. Means your endomorph is 6, fattiness is 6. You have to move it, turn it to 146. Muscularity will be same. Fatness you have to reduce it, and ectomorphy should be 6. So when I put it in front of that lady who is not well, mentally not well, that I'm fatty, we are acting, we are assisting her as a human welfare. That is the role of the kinanthropometrist. They'll measure the person, they'll find out the body type. If the person is nutritionist, very good, he or she can provide perfect, she can provide proper diet. If a personal trainer, as I'm a personal trainer, I say, okay, this is the training program, you have to do it, and you can reduce the body weight like that way. That is the way how kinanthropometry act as a involve themselves in human welfare. It is better to say involve the kinanthropometrist into human welfare, or kinanthropometry into human welfare. Second one over here, she is lean, 119, very lean. She's not happy because health and wellness. She's lean, so lean. Now kinanthropometry will assist now her. as a human welfare. How? Kinanthropometrists will come and they'll measure the body type and tell us, hey, you are 119, you have to go to 444, that's a balanced body. Balanced body. So this is a part of the human welfare. So if he's a dietitian, she'll make a diet plan, proper diet plan. Also, she'll take the personal trainer help to increase her muscularity, increase her fattiness, and also stooling to make her body balanced. So that is the way kinanthropometry assists to add muscle mass and fat as a human welfare. Third one, the guy is lean, ectomorphic, 414, lean, not happy. Suppose he went out, they said, oh, you're too lean. It will affect his happiness, wellness, both mentally and everywhere. Maybe also financially also, he can't do any work properly, perfectly. So if now this kinanthropometry assists this person to say, hey, your muscularity is 414, will increase your muscularity to 8. Muscularity. At the same time, will reduce your fat percent and linearity, so that you can work well, you can earn well. So in that way, kinanthropometry assists to add muscle mass as welfare, the part of the welfare. The theme of the workshop today is a part of the welfare, kinanthropometry assisting. So plotting it like that way. Now, this one is important, that's what I'm saying. Now, kinanthropometry assists to change the body type shape to maintain good health and human welfare. Once you know the body type, that in terms of somatotype, now you can apply the training program according to the person, how much RM, 1% of RM, how much load he has to. It's not that, okay, run, no. He has to know, he has to apply, he has to make a training program with percent of RM and also proper diet to reduce him the body type. So that is the way kinanthropometry is a part of human welfare of the society, of the population, of the society, of an individual person. Same thing over here now. Now, body weight regulation is a very important part as a human welfare. Body weight regulation. Of course, you know, the body weight sometimes it causes mentally very difficult for a person when they are obese, they mentally sick, they can't do proper work. Their economy, their proper work, they can't lots of money or like that way. So in that case, anthropometry again, the kinanthropometry take the part as a welfare part. How? They have to target body weight. They have to, when they want to regulate the body weight of a person, somebody has to know the person present body shape and size. I'm talking about the somatotype. He has to know the somatotype, the fattiness, muscularity, and linearity, present body fat person, and desired body fat person, how much the person or the client wants. 10%, 20%, 15%, 18%, how much he wants. And the target body weight. Then the kinanthropometry calculate, measure the what should be the target body weight. It is not that, oh, height is this much, what should be like? Height is this much, what should be like? No, that is for general population. But scientifically, to make a target body weight, what should be the target body weight of that person? Once that have, you have the diet and exercise program. So I'll touch this part, how to calculate body fat percentage and how to make a target body weight. Now, of course, you know, there are so many equations, but these two equations, that is Dozek et al. And Shiri equations, are across the world. That is what I can say valid for the most of the population across the world, because I work with most of the population in across the world, but I saw it work. And then you need the body density, and body density you have so many equations. But if you use the Darwin and Omesley equation, bicep, tricep, subscapular, and supraspinally, suprailiac nowadays we call supraspinally, both are same. So you can measure the body density. Once you have know the body density, it is easy for you to calculate the fat percentage. Now, once you know the fat percentage, once you know the body fat percentage, then you can make a target body weight. Not seeing that ICMR or other the chart that height is like, weight is that, height is like, weight is that. No, it's totally scientific unitary method. The target body weight is fat-free mass over 1 minus desired percent of body fat and by 100. Once you get the target body weight, then the kinanthropy can say the person that this is your target body weight, you have to reduce it or you have to add it. You have to add. That is the way how the kinanthropometry help in the act as a welfare, take part in the welfare. Then again, the nutrition. Yes, of course, the kinanthropometrist or kinanthropometry has a role where to identify the BMI. When you are measuring the BMI, you know we have to measure the weight, body mass, and stature properly. If you can't take the properly, then you can't. So kinanthropometry teaches the people how to take stature and body weight accurately, which are required, and standard method which are required for calculate BMI. As Patty told in the first lecture, the Isaac has a standard method. We teach people how to take the standard method, how to take the measure properly, as Patty told you at the beginning. So you have to measure the standard way. And of course, there should be somebody there, whether the person is measuring perfectly or not. That is important. If you can't measure perfectly, accurately, properly, you'll get a different result. So kinanthropometry and kinanthropometrists, those who are accredited, they train them how to measure body weight, stature, skin fold thickness accurately. That is the way how kinanthropometry take part in the welfare of the society. Same growth and development. I'm too late, I think 12 I have to finish. Growth and development. Of course, you know, you are all from anthropologists, you are anthropologists, those who are physical anthropology. You are working on that. Okay, so there you have to measure the height, then you can measure the height serially, you can compare, then you can study on that, whether development is proper or not, whatever, then you can suggest diet, nutrition, everything. So there, kinanthropometry assists as welfare to a population, as well as to a child by studying the, oh, my spelling is wrong, mistake is there, in the night I have done it, okay, and growth pattern by measuring height, weight, segment length perfectly. Then how kinanthropometry involved in the welfare by developing the growth and development, studying the growth and development. Then comes to the part athletic, physical activity. Of course, it is in the post anthropometry, of course, she's a Jamaican lady. So how see the muscle mass? So when you are as anthropometrist, as a kinanthropometrist or the kinanthropometry, how they do? They measure the height, weight, somatotite, fat percentage, fatty mass, muscle mass, leg length, other length, arm span, foot length, everything. And then they advise the athlete that what you have to do, how you have to improve the muscle mass. And these are your muscle mass, you have to improve the muscle mass that the sports authority of India, they are doing like that. They said, okay, hey guy, your muscularity is 3, but you want to become an athlete, good athlete, sprinter, and muscularity should be 6 or 7. They measure it and they advise them what to do. Here also again, the kinanthropometry is involving the welfare of the athletic groups or physical activities group or athletics group, athletes group. Then finally, I'm not taking them 12, okay? So I'll finish 12. So 11 to 12. So finally, we can say that kinanthropometry assists to improve human welfare by developing health and wellness. The theme of the workshop today, how kinanthropometry. So kinanthropometry assists to improve human welfare by developing health and wellness. And thank you very much, Shivani, for inviting me here. I think I have finished at 12 o'clock, 11 to 12.
Thank you, Dr. Adhikari. Thank you very much for your illuminating lecture. Now, this session is open.
So, yeah.
I'm sorry. This session is open now for discussion. Would you like to answer some questions from the audience?
Of course, but I can't read what they have written because my eye has some problem. Yeah.
Okay. Now, of course, they will ask you the questions. I think you can answer those questions.
Okay.
Now, since the paper is open for discussion, now any one of you, if you have any query, any question, please ask Dr. Adhikari.
There's okay, no question, I think.
Hello. Anyway, Dr. Adhikari, thank you very much.
Yeah,
for
there
your
is no question. Thank you very much.
illuminating lecture. And I hope in future also you will
Yeah, thank you very much.
enlighten us with your lecture. Thank you very much.
Actually, I have
Thank
to go to the physician. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, Shivani. Okay.
Thank you,
Let
sir,
me-
for joining us. And
Because I have to
despite
take the
of the
blood.
fact that you were not well, then
Yeah, I have
also
to
you
take the
didn't cancel
blood
your
also.
lecture. I know, I can understand. You were not well, and then also you didn't cancel the
No, no,
lecture
no.
and you moved on.
Thank
And we were, I was so delighted. At the first place when I contacted you, you were you
Thank
didn't
you.
even say, you didn't even ask the date and everything. You immediately said yes. You didn't even ask when I am organizing, which
No, no,
date I am organizing. You didn't even say that whether you will be available, or your immediate reaction was
no,
so
no, it is.
encouraging that I will give the lecture. And I
Thank you.
was so thrilled by it, and that's why I conceived the whole idea behind this workshop. And thank you so much for taking some time out
Thank you. Thank
and
you,
giving
Shivani.
us lecture. All the best, and please take care of your health. We'll see
Thank
you
you so
soon.
much.
Thank you
I
so
have to
much.
go for
Please
those
take-
actually. I have to take the
Yes,
blood.
yes, please go, please.
Thank you, Professor.
you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you, Professor. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, should I leave it? How to leave it? Leave. Okay. Thank you, Shivani. Bye.
We have come to the end of the first session. I would like to give special thanks to our two invited speakers, chair and co-chair of this session, and all the participants. Now I would like to invite Ms. Tuti Rao to operate the second session. Thank you.
Professor Elena will be speaking right now, and Professor SP Singh, I think after lunch. So each one will is expected to speak for 1 hour or so. I think organizers have allotted 1 hour time, and I welcome Professor Elena for this lecture, and I really thank you for giving your consent, being occasion, and all of once again, and I welcome you. And I request Dr. Kiranmala Devi to introduce Professor Elena. Yes, Dr. Kiran.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Professor Elena Goldina is a professor of anatomy and biological anthropology. She is currently working as a principal researcher, head of Anthropology Department, Research Institute and Museum of Anthropology, Lomonosov, Moscow State University. She served as the head of anatomy and biological anthropology, Russia State University, Physical Education, Sports, Youth and Tourism. She is also professor in Sports, Youth, Tourism in Department of Anthropology, Lomonosov, Moscow State University. She has also authored and co-authored several textbooks, books, and published in over 350 articles. She is honored researchers, workers, and doctor of many educational institutes. She is also a member of many professional societies, and her expertise, main expertise are biological anthropology, human oxicology, growth, development, and secular ten. And her skills and expertise are excavation, nutrition and assessment, human nutrition, metabolism, insulin resistance, and child development, genetics, and human molecular genetics. So I welcome you, ma'am. You can start your lecture, and over to you, Professor Elena.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. It's really very, very important, and I'm very honored to be here. And of course, my deepest congratulations to the department, to the organizers for their perfect, wonderful job of collecting such an audience for this important event. And for inviting me, of course. I'm particularly grateful to Dr. Shivani, as everybody says, she's our mom. And we are whatever age, we're very, very grateful to be with her and to be around her. Thank you so much. So I will do my screen right now, right? Easier? Yeah, so that's the for 75 glorious years and many, many more ahead. I mean, well, 7,500 or 75,000 years ahead. So congratulations again, and big celebrations. We are with you. And my also best wishes from all Russian anthropologists, because we all connected with our Indian friends and colleagues, and we appreciate very much our connections and our scientific networks. So congratulations. So my talk, is it okay if I do, or shall I do the big screen? What do you think? Do you hear me? It's okay?
Yes.
You can.
Yes, we
You
can
can-
hear you. We
Yes,
can hear
yes,
you.
yes.
Yeah, please.
And see, right? And the
Yes.
screen is yeah, okay.
Yes, we can see your
Visible.
screen.
So I'll do the big screen, but sometimes it doesn't work. I don't know why. I'll try anyway.
This is looking fine. Dr. Elena, this is looking fine.
It's okay? Okay. So my topic is secular changes in physical development of athletes in the context of the general trends. And as was already said, I'm representing, well, at least two institutions in Russia, in Moscow. The main one is my research institute and Museum of Anthropology of Lomonosov Moscow State University. You can see this building. This is an old campus in the center in downtown Moscow. There is, of course, the new one, the big one, which everybody knows. But this will be celebrating 100 years next year in 2022. So we invite Dr. Shivani for this event, and we celebrate together. And another institution is Russian State University of Physical Education, Sports, Youth and Tourism. And that's why I'm sort of interested in both physical development of athletes and some sports specializations and so on. And that's why I've chosen this topic of secular trends in athletes. So the aim of the talk, of today's talk, and the research question, and the aim is to discuss the direction of secular trend changes in modern populations and in specific groups of athletes. And the question is, are they similar to each other or they do not correspond at all, and athletes have their own sort of patterns of secular changes? And before we start, of course, everybody knows that, but still, I remind you of the definition of what is secular trend. And there are a lot of definitions, actually. When I'm lecturing, I give 5-10 definitions from different encyclopedia and vocabularies, but this one is the best one, and it is by Barry Bogan, who will talk. That's a great event to listen to Barry's talk. He will be talking today, and that's the best one because it says not only about changes in the size, in the dimensions, but also about changes in shape. So that's about changes in body proportions and changes in body shape, how we change with generations, in intergenerational pattern, and that's very important. And this is where the words come from, because it's also important how we came to this. We all knew about acceleration of somatic development for years and years. And then we started using this secular changes term. And that's from the word seculum, which means generation, lifetime, age period. And this is to the Roman coin to commemorate the new seculum. So when the new emperor came to the throne, they issued these new coins for the new seculum. And that's why we have this secular term. Anyway, we may look at changes in body size through human evolution. And this is very, very interesting and very important. And nowadays, quite a lot of anthropologists, the other day from my feed news in Twitter, I saw that many anthropologists now are talking about the height in those stages of human evolution. And it looks like we have now quite new members in this line, like Homo naledi, and this one is taller. They calculate his height as 1 meter 40 centimeters, so he's taller than Lucy. And of course, the smallest is Lucy, Australopithecus afarensis, the famous one. And then it goes through some changes. So Homo erectus is quite tall already, as we know, from the famous find in Kenya, in Narikatome. And then Neanderthals, they're a bit shorter and stouter, we know that, more massive, more broader. And finally, the Homo sapiens, and they are the same, basically. They are 1 meter 80 centimeters, so not many change. And this is a funny picture of myself and my student in Krapina in Neanderthal Museum. And this is small, it's not very well, the light is not good, but this is Lucy. She's 120 centimeters, 1 meter 20 centimeters. And also they do now a lot about growth of Neanderthal child there. This is one of the latest research published right now, as you can see, a week ago or so, 2 weeks ago. Anyway, so about 40,000 years ago, European males were 1 meter 80 centimeters, basically. So Cro-Magnons were like us. We can show changes during historical periods from skeletal remains, both for males and for females, as you see. So Paleolithic will be the tallest. And then there are changes due to agricultural practices, lack of food, diseases, and so on and so forth. But of course, we are more interested in the last 100 or 200 years, 2 centuries, because we have a lot of data about the stature, about the growth of people from the military records. As you can see from this picture, it is called historical anthropometry. And we know we have a lot of data about how the height changed in different countries, in different populations. This is again the same picture from famous Tanner's, Jim Tanner's book on growth. And it says that this medieval knight was very, very small comparing to the modern. And this is not very modern. This is about the Second World War story. So the height changed. And we know that from the pictures, from the measuring of recruits. This one is about measuring of recruits in Germany in the 18th century. And that's how the changes for 100 years look like. So there are countries and the changes for 100 years. And we can see that the direction of the change of the trend was the same. They all increase, but with different tempos, with different rates. So the maximum is about Dutch people. We know they are the tallest now. They are the tallest in the world, with their average, their mean height, about 1 meter 85 centimeters. This is quite high, quite tall. And this is about the same, more or less. So this is about different countries, how the height increased. This is from the recent research made by consortium of scientists and of countries. You probably know that. And we know that the tallest are now in Europe, the tallest people in Europe and North America, and the shortest in Asia. And the average height increased for 8-9 centimeters approximately in men, from 162 to 171, and in women from 151 to 159 almost. Of course, we have such data in Russia, and this is the picture how they measured people in Russia, very close to what we saw in the previous picture. So the measurements of conscripts or recruits in Russia, and how the average height changed during the 20th century. So we see that the height changed for 8 centimeters during the century. And there was some decline in height during 20s, 30s years, 1920s, 1930s, before the war. That's those people who were born during these birth cohorts, during those birth years, they were shorter than later or before, because of some not only social economic but also political situations. And Barry will talk about these political factors influencing growth in details later today. So I won't talk about that now. And well, this is again about the same. We did this with one of my students. We reproduced the increase in stature for Russian males, and it's a bit bigger than what the general NSCD consortium give us. So it's a bit bigger than they calculated from the general records. We can make such a statement that throughout the period of the 90s and most part of the 20th century, in line with the improvements in socioeconomic conditions, the physical height was increasing at all age categories for different social strata and for different populations. The direction, as I said already, as we discussed, of changes was the same. The rates or the tempos of changes were different. And when we talk about that, of course, we remember the famous phrase or slogan coined by Jim Tanner. And when we talk about human growth, we always repeat this sentence that growth is a mirror of the conditions of the society, of the conditions in the society. So the growth as a very plastic process reflects immediately whatever happens in the society. If the growth conditions are not good, the results, the consequences are in retardation or some other manifestations of delayed growth. So that's the key notion for all axologists, for all those who study human growth. So manifestations of secular trend, besides changes in height, concerns changes in body proportions, and we talked about shape, changes in the dates of sexual maturations, changes in physical performance, of course, we'll talk about that, and even changes in head and face proportions. So our faces and heads are also changing together with the general secular trend. And I put here IQ because we do have some information now that also psychological and mental abilities are changing, of course, in this new generation. And there are some good signs and some bad signs, but IQs are on the rise anyway. So let's have a look at some trends in secular changes around Russia and around some other countries. And we measured a lot of populations all over the country. That's one of the pictures of my team measuring children, just for you to understand what's going on. Of course, you know, a lot of measurements, some bioimpedance studies, statistics, and so on and so forth. We're not dealing with that. So we know that nowadays we are in this era of obesity epidemic or circular obesity. There are a lot of terms for that, but what's happening that the adults and children are going more and more obese, more weight. That's one of the end of this distribution, and the other end is undernourishment. So we not talk about that now, but anyway, we see that obesity is on the rise in many countries. This is Czech and some European countries and United States here. And there are a lot of ways to present this data. This is for children older than 15, for individuals older than 15, and percentage of population with body mass index greater than 30. So this is obesity, as we know from the international, from WHO standards. And we see that United States is on the first place, and there are more than 30% of the population. And in some states, it's already more than 50%. So there are real problems with obesity in this country. And then some other countries. And at the end, we see that there is no Russia here, not included, and I didn't find India. But anyway, Japan, Korea, and some other countries are not that suffering from this obesity epidemic. But anyway, it's more or less worldwide. And at the same time, in Russia and in some other Eastern European countries, there was a trend towards more linear body build, towards, as we say, leptosonic or ectomorphic body build. Because I can't show you, okay, I'll try like that. So we use this slogan from Matryoshka to Barbie, and it's important because we speak about here, that's a special subject, but we talk about body image and about mass media influencing body image, particularly in young girls, in young generation. And let's have a look how it reflects in some body dimensions. Sorry. Yeah, like that. Do you see it, okay? You see it? I can't hear you.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, sorry. Because it doesn't switch like I want to. Yeah. So let's have a look. This is our data, and this is 40 years of measurements, as you can see, of Moscow girls, and there is not much changes so that's the let's say the turn of the centuries or of millennium, whatever you say. So there is no change in right? But there is decrease in weight and decrease in chest circumference. So that's why when I was talking about definitions, I talk about shape. So they do change their shape. They're becoming more ectomorphic in terms of Schouten and his Carter somatic type schemes were what Dr. Anup told you before. But let's have a look at the changes. Again, one generation. We know that one generation is 25 years. So one generation and changes in Moscow University students' body measurements. And we see there is some slight increase. So the red is increase and the blue is decrease in measurements. There is some slight increase for boys in stature and for girls as well. And for girls, you see almost everything is with minus. So they're becoming all the let's say diameters and circumferences. So they're becoming more ectomorphic, more leptosonic. And this is again, according to one of my students' diploma work, well, anyway, dissertation, thesis, about somatotypes. And we see that ectomorphic for one generation increased very, very significantly. Mesomorphic decreased, endomorphic almost the same, endomorphic. So this is a funny picture, and it tells us the meaning of these changes of how we perceive our own bodies in terms of evolutionary changes. So when the resources were scarce, we worshipped, I mean humanity, humans, we worshipped the big bodies. And look at this one. Yeah, this is one of the latest, so to say, Venus found, Paleolithic Venus found in Germany, very small from ivory, mammoth ivory, and now it's a big discussion. That's a new publication again, the Kiev art debate, what it was about. And definitely all the scientists think that it was about the human body as a resource for reproduction and for continuation of the species, of the population, of the family, and so on. So that was basically about their fat resources, and the fatter they were, the more successful they were. And now, when we have plenty of resources and we are big, we worship this sort of teeny tiny body shape and body image, and this is changing. So we talked about sexual maturation, and we know this famous picture from famous graph from Tanner's book about menarche, aged menarche, because that's one of the most important marker of sexual maturation. We may talk about a lot of different things, but that's one that was well documented in many manuscripts, in many books and medical works and so on. So that's the best to use. Though we may use some other secondary sexual characteristics, and we are working with that, of course. But we see that the secular trend reflects the changes, the decline in the aged menarche during the 19th and 20th century. So from 17 plus to 13, or a little bit less than 13. Let's have a look at our own data. This is about Moscow girls for the 50 years. This is years of birth. So from 15 plus at the beginning of the 20th century to 13 at the end of the 20th century. And it stays at 13 mark right now, so we don't have much changes. And according to some well-known axiological authorities like Tim Cole, the 13, the age of 13 years is kind of optimal. So they think that that will be at most of the European countries. The age at menarche now is at the point of 13. Well, some stories about heads, and we know that heads and cephalic index was always considered like something very important in anthropology. It was used in many cases politically and so on. We all remember the stories, but it looks like the this is our own data, but it was also confirmed in many other countries. We see that this is changing together with the secular trends, and the heads are becoming more narrow, they are longer. As you see, this is 90s and this is 60s head lengths, and they are becoming more narrow. This is again 90s and 60s. So they are longer, they are more narrow. The shape of the head is changing as well. So not only the shape of our bodies, but the shape of the head and the shape of the face. Look at the face. So face lengths, face are longer, but more narrow. So again, the shape of the faces is changing together with the secular trend. And this is the good news about IQ, that they are on the rise. But well, there are some other problems with young generation and how they communicate with the surrounding world, how they acquire knowledge and how they keep knowledge. But that's another story. That's not for today's discussion. But the most important things is secular changes in physical performance, of course. And here we have rather interesting and sort of not very happy story, because we see this is from one of the work by Bob Malina. I'm citing him quite often. He's the patriarch of the axiological approach to physical performance, that he published a lot of books, as you all know. So there are classical textbooks like Tanner's. And we see that according to what he gives us in this table, the changes in all groups of muscles are going down with minus, change with minus to basically all groups of muscles studied. And we have our own data for Moscow children. This is only about hand grip strength. And we see that this is for boys and for girls. And we see that the latest data, the green line, 2000, they are the lowest. They are the lowest for both cases. So the physical strength is declining. And what is also interesting, I don't talk about that here, but we have some data about declining physical strength in rural areas. It was always considered that in rural areas, people are much stronger than in urban. But now, in some cases, the situation is changing, and it is not such a clear case. And of course, we know about what's happening, how our children play. This is one of the discussion about that. We know that there are a lot of sites where you can play tennis, hockey, whatever game or whatever sports, just sitting and clicking on your computer, on your telephone, and this is much easier than to go out and to play there. This is a big discussion also about children, returning of children to play in the street to prevent them from getting fat. This is in the UK. She was MPs at that time. That's just the clipping from one of the British newspapers. Sorry. Also, just for you to know, just in your information, there are quite a lot of very important information now, like about growth of Neanderthals and so on and so forth. This is a very interesting new study, absolutely new, like maybe 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago, that not only the time of sitting at the electronic device is playing an important role in some children's health, in this case in mental health, but also the, so to say, multifunctional things. So if they do that and think about this and not concentrate on that and so on and so forth, so that brings this stress and discomfort and consequences for their health. So this is important just to tell you about these new developments and new studies in the field of oxology. Quite a lot of new interesting things. Now, what about secular changes in wrestlers? Let's have a look at that. Sorry. First, this is about height, and we did 2 lines for the general population of changes in body height, and this is for athletes, for the wrestlers, combat athletes, men, wrestlers. So we do see that they are different. They don't increase as the general population height is increasing. And here we have some interesting figures for wrestlers, freestyle wrestlers, and skaters. How some of the body parameters of the body dimensions have changed. And we see here that the changes are different. Like height almost didn't increase in wrestlers, but it did increase in skaters. Corpus length, the same, and it changed in skaters. Leg length didn't change in wrestlers, but it changed. The legs became longer in skaters, and so on. We may look at these graphs and see that, see what's happening. So these are wrestlers and these are skaters, and one wrestlers, 2 skaters, so you can follow. And we have height, and that's what we were basically is the same as in the table, but it is easier to cook in this format, let's say. So what is here? We can see that the height didn't change, but it's much bigger in skaters, and chest circumference a bit bigger in wrestlers, and it decreased in skaters. weight increased in weight in wrestlers and a little bit decreased in skaters. And body mass index basically didn't change. And we saw that in the table, from the table, but it increased, decreased in skaters. And this is about body proportion. So again, about shape, corpus length. Basically, little changes in wrestlers, but in skaters, the leg length increased. And this increase in leg length is actually in the general trend, because when we talk about increase in height in circular changes, it goes parallel with increase in leg. So normally, or well, let's say classically, traditionally, the circular increase in height is accompanied by circular increase in leg length. And that's what we see in the skaters. So we see that in some way, the pattern of general changes is repeated in athletes, but in some cases, they keep to their own morphotype and even strengthen it, even increase it through the circular changes. And this is an important result as far as I can see. So if we talk about conclusions and comments, they would be like that. When comparing the physique of modern athletes and wrestlers, so in the middle of the last century, it was shown that the trend of the circular increase in height, typical for modern population, is expressed in athletes to a much less extent. Some of the demonstrated changes, the increase in fat, go in the same direction as in general population, where trend for obesity is the most distinctive sign of our time. Other changes, like the trend towards shorter legs in modern wrestlers or longer legs in skaters, could be connected with their typical morphological structure and adaptation to specific sport activity. And of course, we need further monitoring of circular changes, both in general population and in athletes of different specialization, to understand what are the general patterns and what are the specific patterns. And to finish the talk, I would say that we need the information from many different populations. Unlike the approach of one standard for all, or something like anthropologists always emphasize the diversity and the necessity of different reference tables or reference information, reference data for many different populations all over the world. And in this line, I would like to suggest even the comparison between the growth and development of Indian population and Russian population, and maybe do the joint research like we did with Mongolians and with some other friends all over the world, and to compare the patterns of growth and development changes in our two countries, and maybe to do some good references for the countries of some areas. That's my sort of takeaway message. And thank you very much for your attention. And I hope I put the word Dhanyavad correct. Thank you. And congratulations again.
Thank you, Professor Elena. It was an amazing lecture. I think this is the first time I just heard, from the starting till the end, I was just noting down the points. And it is such a beautiful lecture. And the most beautiful part here is that you have the hard work that went into it is really seen in this lecture. I'll talk about your talk a bit later, but I would like to see if anybody has any questions to ask. Because for students, this would be a very wonderful, this gives an idea how to work on such data. Such a wonderful lecture. Yes, anybody who wants to ask anything? Anybody here?
I'm here.
Okay, I am also here, of course. So, since the students, they're not, maybe they know everything or they don't know anything. They're not asking anything. So anyway, I have to say a few things that why this is so beautiful, this lecture. First thing, you started with trends from Paleolithic times to the Imperial Rome. You have shown the figures and it's so beautifully explained. And you talked about historical anthropometry.
Yes.
Something again wonderful. And then within 20th century, you were talking about the secular trends in terms of different, body measurements, in terms of sexual maturities, and you talked of this head and face dimensions. You also talked of intelligent IQ. That is something interesting again, IQ. And madam, next time, maybe if you are anyway, you are used to hard work, I wish you also would talk something about EQ, emotional coefficient, next time when you talk.
Thank you. Thank you. There are a lot of absolutely fantastic questions to discuss. It's just like, in one lecture, I try to mention that, I try to just to for students to broaden their horizons, to know that there are so many interesting things in anthropology. Because, well, anthropology is classical. We are not so young, we are not so old, we are okay. 175, that's okay. But there are absolutely new perspectives, new horizons now with a lot of studies. So that's what I wanted to tell to the students.
Ma'am, ma'am, from this lecture, if you ask me, I can at least take out 50 topics for PhD students.
Thank you.
Exclusively from your lecture, I can take out 50 topics, more than 50 maybe. And then you spoke on all aspects. I didn't know. I am basically a molecular geneticist, but still recently I started working on something BMI and all those things. And you also mentioned stage is not increasing the way the BMI and the weights are increasing. That is an interesting thing. And in one of my papers, I also wrote that height is more of a genetic phenomena. Height is more of a genes control height, whereas weight and BMI, they are more of environmental. So this is something interesting. One has to really probe into these things. And I also like that Matreksha to Barbie. The depiction was really good. Body image and body dimensions. That is very, very good. And finally, you ended up with secular trends in athletes, where different types of sports persons, how things change in them with time. So they're also interesting. And on the whole, it was such an amazing and a wonderful lecture. I was very happy, and I've learned a lot. And first of all, more than the matter or more than the substance you gave, the ideas. We also can do this type of secondary literature survey, and then we also can come up something, because you talked in context of Russia. All these things that are happening in Russian context. So every country should be, I think, especially in India. India is a country with huge diversity. Well, such a study will work in India or not is a question. If at all we want to do this in India, do we have to do region-wise, or do we have to do community-wise is again a question. So these questions are real challenges in Indian context.
Thank you.
And once again, I thank you for your wonderful talk. But I request you, whichever conference, whatever level we do in India, from our department, I wish you would be one of the speakers. I hope you understand. I want you to be one of the speakers because from such people only students can learn. They should know how to, at least if we cannot do such work, we should at least know how to appreciate such work. Wonderful lecture. Thank you so much, madam. And
thank you.
Ma'am, we have few questions in the chat box.
Please, I will go to chat box and we will ask some questions, right? Very good.
Thank you.
One first thing is, thank you. And there are many comments also, Dr. Elena. Thank you, ma'am, for the beautifully explained lecture. It has interesting and different exclusive data. Thank you. Thank you very much for wonderful talk. Is there any secular trend observed in Indian populations that we have to tell, madam? You don't have to ask her. Let me
Thank you so much.
First, we are taking it. Then is there any correlation between mental health and secular changes in height and weight? This is a question, madam. If you can just throw some light.
Okay. Well, basically, we don't have such data. There are some papers about this the impact of stress on mental health. But this is connected with the pubertal period and things like that, but not the direct correlation. So I would answer that there are some data, some papers, not my paper, not my data. So my data mostly about the morphological status, and that was I was relying on when I was talking today, and also there are some data about physical performance, but not about mental state. But there are some data that this pubertal stress or adolescent, different let's say problems that experiencing by teenagers, they do affect mental health. So there are some data on that. If that explains the question I was asked.
Usually there are mostly cross-sectional studies, I believe, understanding the relation between obesity and mental health. There are some papers, but in terms of longitudinal studies, I really don't know how much data is available, and specifically in Indian context, I don't know much about it. We have to explore. And of course, madam's lecture does talk about something associated with IQ secular trends. There is a secular trend in IQ. There is a secular trend in weight, secular trend in height, body dimensions, every relation between IQ and definitely there must be, or IQ. So we should express the important. That's what I said. We can take out more than 50 PhD topics from her lecture. So that is the beauty of her lecture. And comments in there are more congratulatory messages. Yes, madam. Please go ahead. You want to say something
about IQ? I included that because it's again absolutely sorry. Well, something.
I'm not able to hear you.
Yeah. Now is it okay now? There was some problems.
Ma'am, something is wrong with my phone. I'll just leave and get back. Please hold on. Please just wait for 1 minute.
Okay. I can hear you. I can hear you.
Ma'am, please go ahead.
Okay, so I only mentioned this IQ thing because it's quite a new study.
Yes.
And as we try to cover many different subjects about secular changes, so it is interesting. We were always interested how it corresponds with, let's say, our brains and our knowledge. And this IQ study is also very controversial. So IQs on the rise, but the general, let's say, ability for reasoning, for making decisions, and so on and so forth, is not so good in modern young generation. So that's a big problem again. Psychological, let's say, coming into age, and this the abilities for bigger knowledge. So it is very controversial, and it needs to be researched and discussed, to be studied. And I think psychologists will dwell on it. They will definitely make some studies on that. And you are right that longitudinal is very important, longitudinal studies in this case. But this, at least, we know that there are some such studies. And there are some questions in the chat, but I can't read them all.
I'll read. One more is left, madam. All the others are congratulatory messages. One question for you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. If I may ask again, if you could throw light on relation between athletes' performance and the secular changes. Like there are changes observed in athletes' leg length. Hope you could hear me. Hello.
Madam Professor Saraswati, myself is Professor Bandopadhyay from Calcutta University.
Please, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
How are you?
How are you? Fine, thank you.
You're fine. So Professor Elena Godina is not in the line right now.
Oh.
So the thing is I'm just putting up some comments. I mean, may not be the questions as a kind of comment. This is fine. I have joined a late.
Okay.
So it was some more beautiful because Professor Saraswati was from the first to last. It was in the lecture he has already expressed. Thank you so much, Professor Saraswati, being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
And really, I know that whatever the work you have done, and I would like to mention myself and Professor Elena Godina was in the last in a meeting in the virtual in November 20th in the Sweri in Poland. So it was again a nice topic she has given an interest. And I would like to just make a point that you are talking about the genetics in the weight, not in the weight, but in the stature. But if you think about the somatotypes, you know that somatotypes are the genetic constitution. And the genetic constitution means that if you think about the extreme ectomorph, so I feel that the weight will be always down there, then and the stature will be high. So I feel that we can take into consideration about taking the somatotypes. Also with this directly to the anthropometric measurements. Thank you so much for giving me a time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Elena is here?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you. Do you hear me?
And actually, Professor Arup Bandopadhyay from Kolkata, he was just talking and he was praising your talk, madam. And he also works in the same field. I think he also spoke to you sometime in some conference. He was mentioning that, and he was very appreciative. And so I think we have two speakers. One we are done with. Once again, I thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful lecture, and we would like to see you very often in our department talks.
Thank you.
Please consider our department whenever we come with a request. Please don't say no to us. And and even our students of physical anthropology will be learning a lot from your lectures, because after your lecture, I think I will be talking to my students about your lecture. So next time when they come, they will be carefully listening to you, more carefully listening to you. Okay, madam.
Thank you. Thank you. There is some question. I can't read totally from the chat.
I'll read out for you. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful session. My question is that there is any correlation in terms of secular trend between pubertal maturity and physical strength. It is Atreya Neogai somehow Gohati.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a beautiful question. Of course, there is some correlation between the timing of puberty and the let's say definitive body size. And it's there are a lot of studies, both. If we think, we may think about those changes. This is about biological age, so to say. Now we didn't talk in this lecture, but a little bit about sexual maturation. But actually, this is a question about biological age. So we may talk within population, within the group of people, how they accelerated or retarded react to different events, and how it is connected with their physical performance, with their final stage or definite, the stage of the adult stage. And we may talk about intergenerational changes, so it is both connected. So within the generation, the earlier menarche, normally the taller they are. So the earlier the puberty, the taller they are. But intergenerational, sometimes it's vice versa. The later, the taller. So it's very interesting question to study again and to analyze at both inter and intra group level for analysis. So that's my answer. And about the secular trend and physical performance, of course, we do know that they are much better in physical performance. Like look at those rugby players, enormous giants, and of course it's all because of better physical performance or some other records in professional sports, so to say, professional sports. And it all goes parallel to their changes as in body morphology. Although they keep, as we saw, as I tried to explain, they keep to their typical for this sports specialization, morphology, body morphology, morphotype, so to say, or somatotype, if you want. When we talk about somatotype, we have in mind immediately Sheldon, Heath Carter. I knew Barbara Heath very well. She was my good friend. And also, that's why I sometimes use morphotype. And they keep to their, if they're long-legged, they are long-legged. And wrestlers who are short-legged, because they don't need long leg, well, apart from some special types of combat sports, so they're of different morphotype. So that's what I was trying to explain. But of course, it's all for the better physical performance, for the better sports participation and competition and achievements. Thank you. So that's my answer.
Saraswati ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And even now, almost 90 students are still on board. Students and participants are listening to you. That talks about the how interesting your lecture was. So I think we can close the session now for lunch. We can break for lunch, and we can come back around. The next session is 3 o'clock, Kirti?
2 p.m. ma'am.
2 p.m. Yes. So 2 o'clock we can meet for the next session, and we can listen to the next speaker. Once again, Professor Elena, thank you so much for your amazing lecture. That's all. Okay. Thank you.